Hey, Freedom Family, it's John Deblat here, Diaspora's Freedom Initiative CEO, and I am still here in Mombasa. And today, I wanted to talk to you guys about relationship building, right? So there are groups of expats, as we call them, Black Americans, Black Brits, Afro Swedes, um, that reside in Kenya or are attempting to reside in Kenya. And other African countries. And so what ends up happening is sometimes we'll be in these groups with these people, and we'll be, talking about whatever we're doing. Um, and there'll be people that'll say, like, well, wait a minute, how did you do that? I've been here for a year. I've been here for 6 months. I've been here for 2 years. Um, and I haven't been able to get approved for the things that you get your clients approved for in a matter of months, right? So number one, it's important to know how things work. So it's important to know the laws and how the laws work. It's important to know what's policy versus what's law. Um, so like a lot of people have a really tough time getting like a bank account here if they try to do it on their own. Um, and so there's a banking act in Kenya. You can download it, you can read it. And some of the things that banks ask for are not part of the Banking Act. They're also not part of any Immigration Act. So it ends up being a policy, not a law. And then there are ways to approach bank management and bank ownership and say, hey, listen, I know this is a policy. I know it's not the law. If you need me to, I'll show you the law. Like, it's not the law. So what you're saying is that you've created policies that mitigate your risk as a bank and as a business. I get that. I'm a business person. So what do I need to show you? What surety do I need to show you to secure your risk so that this policy that's blocking our ability to create a banking relationship so that we can get a waiver or an exemption to this policy. Other things are proactive. So there are certain situations in which you can open like a bank account, but if you don't meet some government qualifications in 90 days, then that account will be frozen, right? Until you meet the qualifications. So it depends on what you're doing. We're always bringing businesses. We've never brought like an individual because that's not really what we do. So as a company, as we're installing a company over here in East Africa, then we can factor those things in. So we can open that account that is at risk of being frozen in 90 days if you don't get certain things in place, and we can get those things in place within those 90 days. And if we don't, so what? You don't lose anything. You don't lose your money. You don't lose your account, and money can still flow into the account. It just can't flow out. So when you talk about business strategy and being strategic, if you're going to do, like a 6-month launch, and let's say you're doing, something like what we're doing, and you're, raising investor funds for a real estate development deal, you can still deposit those funds in your account, even if your account is locked. You just can't take anything out of it. So there are certain permits that require a dollar amount, approvable dollar amount for investment in the country, right? So if you want to be like a qualified investor or certified investor, you have to show, you don't have to pay anything, but you have to show, hey, I have this amount of money that's earmarked to be invested in the country. So if your investment is based on fundraising, you can have all your stuff set up. We can strategically structure your accounts. You can go ahead, have the account open, start raising funds. Maybe the account gets frozen in that time, in the 90-day time span, but it doesn't matter. You can still deposit into the account. You just can't withdraw. Then the instant that you go through the regulatory process, which we will take you through, then that particular government body will issue a letter to the bank saying, yes, you have applied for your certified investors permit, and that they're reviewing your qualifications now, and that will immediately unlock your account. And then they're going to look into that account again. Like I said, you don't have to pay for anything, but they're going to look into that account and make sure you have the requisite amount of money to be a qualified investor. And then you'll get your investor certificate. So the issue is that people don't know how things work, and they have no relationships, because it's no one's job to tell you how things work. So a lot of people will maybe call these government offices. They may use the wrong wording. They may use the phraseology or the terminology that we use in the United States that doesn't even apply to Kenya, or maybe something completely different in Kenya. And the person's just going to answer your question. They're not going to assume that you don't know what you're talking about. That's a pretty rude assumption to make. So they're just going to answer your question. And then that can set you on the path of being here for months and sometimes years, extending visas, getting new visas, getting special passes, and all of this stuff to be here, when you could have been done inside of weeks. You could be where you need to be, have everything you need to have, all your documents squared away in a matter of weeks, months at the most. So that's the difference of having someone bring you in versus, doing it on your own. Us, we have been coming to the continent for over 7 years to figure, this stuff out. So I've heard, people say things like, "Oh, well, you guys figured it out, I'll just figure it out on my own." Well, yeah, that's fine. We'll see you in 9 years, when you have it all figured out. That's what it took us, and that's what it takes to build like meaningful relationships. You're not going to build meaningful relationships because you came here and visited for 2 weeks. Who are you building a meaningful relationship with in those 2 weeks? How do you even know who to build a relationship with in 2 weeks? So it takes time to build these relationships, and that's why you want an organization to hold your hand and bring you in and walk you through it. And things change, laws change, rules change. The Jobs Act changed a lot of the ways that people were getting tax benefits from being here. Tax benefits are still there, but that changed the way it worked. That it happens. That's what happens in government. So having somebody who has a relationship with administrators, sometimes there's like a grandfather waiver. Like sometimes there's a way for directors in government offices to say, "Hey, listen, I know we changed the way that we did this, but there's a provision in that change that says if somebody was already deep into the process, they can go ahead and finish it the old way." But if you didn't know that, you would just start complying with the change, and it would reset all of your progress. And now you're like, "Oh, I got to do this a whole new 9 months," because you didn't ask, number one, and you didn't know who to ask, number two, because the system isn't the same here as it is in some of the Western countries, where like everybody gets the same information. Information is really disseminated to office leadership, and then whether or not they feel that like the teller person, so to speak, or the person at the desk needs to know, is kind of up to them. So if they neglected or simply forgot to tell the person at the desk, "Hey, there is this special waiver program," they wouldn't know. So it's not even like they're fooling you, or they're tricking you, or they're scamming you, or anything like that. They just don't know because they can't do it. Sometimes it takes a certain level of management to even be able to sign off on that petition. So because they can't even fill out the paperwork, they don't realize that the paperwork exists, and they're normally limited time things. So relationship building is just important. It's important in the United States too. But I feel as though for people who are making a move and they need something to happen quickly in a foreign country, finding somebody who has those relationships already established is paramount. So that's why there is a discrepancy in what some people who may have just moved here and just kind of exited the United States because they didn't agree with what was going on, and now they're trying to make it. Um, their experience and the time that it's taking for them to get things to happen versus the time that we get things done for people is based on having relationships, knowing the actual law um, versus policies and procedures and guidances, um, and being able to push that if we need to. So we have entire legal teams that if we need to sue a division, if we need to sue a local government official, if we need to sue somebody for not allowing us to utilize the law as it is written, we'll do that. Um, so, but you got to know what the law is in order to do something like that. So, being familiar with the law as it stands, and being familiar with case law and what has happened with different cases in the past, and having relationships with significant individuals in the departments that you're operating within, whether that be business registration or whether that be immigration, or whoever it might be, whether it's a local government, and just having a connection to the local governor's office. These things are important. So, you know, it can't be stressed enough that relationship building is the backbone of all business, really. And the same thing applies here. Some of the Western systems kind of desensitize us to relationship building, and so we get bad at it. And some of our businesses are 100% e-commerce and 100% online, so we get bad at it. But you gotta flex your relationship building muscles when you go into another country, even if it's another Western country. Um, Having those relationships with people aren't thinking about doing their job. So, oh, they ask a question, I give an answer. When you have relationship building, it creates a level of empathy. So you may ask a question, but then instead of that person giving an answer, they actually put themselves in your shoes. And they say, well, if I wanted to accomplish what this person wanted to accomplish, what's the information that I think that I would need or I would want given to me? And now you're not just doing this question answer bit. Now you're speaking to someone that you built a relationship with. They know what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and they say, okay, well, you asked me about A, but that's really the wrong question to ask because I know what you're trying to accomplish. And based on what you're trying to accomplish, what you really should be asking me about is E, F, and G. And here's why, and here's the answer, and here's the department that you go to get that done, or we can do it here, or go to this, government website and fill out the official application form. It's here. You're dealing with the wrong branch of government. That happens a lot. People who are trying to do it on their own end up dealing with the wrong branch of government a lot. I'm going to give you a pretty quick example here. There are two pretty important permits. There's a work permit, and there is an investor's permit or an investor certificate. Both of them do the same thing on a basic level as far as giving you like sweeping abilities, like the ability to open a bank account, the ability to get certain like ID cards and stuff like that. They both give you those abilities. They differ for some obvious reasons. Like if you're here, you own a business, you're not a worker. You're the business owner. Now, can you still get a work permit? Sure, because you can decide, well, you know what? I'm going to be the salaried CEO of my company or managing director, depending on which terminology you're using, and depending on which kind of company you're opening here. So you can say, all right, I'm going to be payrolled, and the work permit process seems better for me, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. But that's an informed strategic decision. You could also say, all right, well, I'm not working. I'm not working for anyone. I'm not taking a job with anyone. So I'm going to go get the investor certificate. Gives you the same thing. as far as your ability to open accounts and your ability to move through the system, but you don't work for anybody. So now you're getting all those things as an investor. Those are two completely different branches of government. So the people who process, you can actually get both technically, but the people who process your work permit are not the same branch of government in Kenya as the people who would process an investor's certificate. Two completely different directorates, two completely different branches of government. So you can get, kind of jammed up if you're on the investment side looking for a work permit. And here's why it wouldn't be automatically evident that you're in the wrong place. If you have an investor's permit, this is one of the differences. If you have the investor's permit or the investor's certificate, as a qualified investor, you can then use that certificate to expedite the issuing of work permits to people who are on your investment team. I think you get 3 of them, right? So as the owner, as the investor, you can now bring over some, qualified consultants or foremen, or and that's how we do it. I guess if you want to be a total colonizer, you can just bring over labor, which I don't agree with. But if you need someone to instruct, Kenyan labor, you can bring those people over by going through a process where, as a qualified investor, you have a fast track to issuing work permits under your own company to these people that you need to come help you with the investment project, right? So even in that side of things, the work permit is a benefit of that investor's certificate or / investor's permit. So if you start talking work permit, the investor's certificate people are not going to immediately say, whoa, 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 you need to go over to immigration. Why are you talking work permit with us? They're going to assume that you already have your investor's certificate and you need to issue a work permit to someone else, or you want to issue a work permit to yourself under your investor certificate for some strategic reason. So if you don't know what's going on and they don't have a relationship with you, again, they're not going to assume that you don't know, right? Because that's a pretty rude assumption to make. They're going to assume that you know what you're talking about and that you're asking them exactly what you want to ask them, and that your team already has this figured out, what you're going to do with that information. So keep that in mind. If you're still going to try to, kind of navigate things yourself, then keep that in mind and approach things that way. And maybe ask people, what should I be asking? Because I don't know. Am I asking the right thing? This is what I intend to do. And see if they'll tell you. Because again, if there's no relationship, even if you do kind of be direct with them, there's no reason why they would necessarily tell you. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's been, coming in. I like to address the things that you guys are talking about. So it's been popping up where people are like, oh, wait, no, how did you do that in 3 months? How did you do that in just a little bit of time that you've been there? I've been here trying to do that and I can't do it. And then when we get into it, it just turns out that they just don't know what they're doing because they're trying to do it themselves in a foreign place. So keep that in mind. Things are really, really easy when you know how to do them. All right, guys, build relationships, even in the U.S., even if you're not coming to Africa, build relationships in your business. Super important, guys. All right. It's Freedom Family. This is John DeBlock signing off.